This is where I think most of the problems have arisen in the traffic flow, because people definitely were confused by this reconfiguration. Half the town already voted at the church and was used to just the normal traffic flow as it is normally for St. Teresa's Church, and they were used to that. The other half of town never voted there. Some of them are parishioners, of course, for St. Teresa's Church, so they were, I think, probably confused by the reconfiguration too. One of the pitfalls of that plan, I think, is that the parking lanes are striped in one way, and we were really trying to get people to park opposite those parking lane stripings that are permanent on the pavement. So trying to get people to enter that east side parking lot, which is the main parking area for the election voters, was a difficult task. A lot of people still continued down the one side and circled around and came back down the lot from 62, aiming down towards the rear. So that's one of the issues. We did have a tremendous backup of traffic on 62, extending all the way to Freedom Drive for the January elections. That caused major problems for a lot of voters trying to enter into the parking area. We needed to have a public safety detail, a police detail there to direct traffic, and he was there all day long. We do still encounter safety issues for persons exiting the church from the blind spot that they encounter as they approach the driving path, that they just cannot be seen by the approaching vehicles. And the safety officer that was there, certainly on the January election when we had the biggest crowd, did experience many persons who were somewhat in danger by the approaching traffic, because people just don't pay attention and slow down, they just continue to go. So that's one of the, well, those are basically the reasons that we're here. We want to address the reconfiguration of that east side parking. I really would like to eliminate that in total and just try going along with the parking as it is, stacked parking. What it will also help to eliminate in this way by keeping it as straight ahead stacked parking is the vehicles do not need to back up into pedestrian traffic anymore. As it is reconfigured, both sides of the parking lot, a vehicle would have to back out to exit the parking area, and of course they're going to impact perhaps pedestrians who are walking to get to their cars. So by trying to go back to just the straight stacked parking, all the vehicles would enter in the same way. Hopefully they would move up a little bit. I know it won't be as tight a fit as it is during church when masses get out at the same time, but I think we stand a better chance of fitting perhaps 3 vehicles in each lane. Each lane could accommodate 4 if they were heel to toe, but at least you might be able to accommodate 3. With the way it's divided now, the maximum is 1 on each side. So I think we could gain some parking space by doing that too. And certainly on a public safety standpoint, you wouldn't have vehicles backing up into pedestrians again. But again, I do feel that it is a necessity to have a public safety officer at the exiting area for the polls. It is very dangerous there. I can't emphasize it enough. And Officer Romeo is here to let you know the feelings of the police department and the police chief. We've met a couple of times since the election to go over things, issues that happened, and he's gotten the feedback of the officers that were on duty. And certainly on the larger elections, I do think that it is a necessity to have a traffic detail at the entrance or the exit area, one of those areas, wherever the backup occurs.
Barbara, I understand what you're saying, and you know, I hadn't even thought of that, and it appears that might, because people kind of figure out, you know, and it's an election, so people aren't going to be hanging there, yes, as long as the people that are permanent park up back.
Right.
But I had discussed, and Jeff actually drew a picture of an approach that I thought might alleviate some of the parking, some of the traffic issue coming down here. Because one of the things I observed waiting in line here is that people that want to get in here have to go all the way across outgoing traffic. So since you have the lines, you know, in the right direction, why not allow people headed toward Kitty's to take a right and park on this side, and people coming in from Kitty's to the church go the usual route, and then people leaving would have to drive up and around to get out. So there'd be, and if they're going out, they're going to make a right-hand turn. If people are pulling in, they've got a better chance of making the right turn. And if they're going the other way, also, if people are pulling in, they have an opportunity to pull out. I don't know if anyone's thought of looking at that approach.
You had mentioned it to me, Mr. Messeri, and I discussed it with the police department too. I think I'll let Sergeant Romeo take that one.
The problem, if we were to do an entranceway at the exit point, is you're now going to put all the vehicles back up to the exit point, pedestrian exit point of the pole location. Because all those vehicles that would be coming westbound on 62, if they were entering into this lot, they would have to loop around the whole parking lot, the east parking lot, and go parallel to the building wall exit.
Okay, so your concern is related to pedestrians crossing the road.
This last election, in the January election, we had a full-time traffic duty officer on 62. We had a full-time detail officer inside the facility. We had 2 full-time detail officers for pedestrian traffic. The pedestrian traffic that all the voter exit at the pedestrian exit for the voting location is, in my estimation, the worst I've ever seen as far as pedestrian safety is concerned. It was to the point where I wouldn't even let the detail officer use the restroom without a relief officer there. It was so bad, the detail officer reported he had to actually physically grab a woman, a handicapped woman, and push her out of the way not to get hit by a car. That's how bad we're talking about that location.
Now, what have we done when we've always had 2 precincts vote there? What's the difference?
We had three, 4 times the
Right, it's the volume
voted.
right now. We still have these instances occur. The officers that have always been on duty at the polls had made me aware of it, and we were putting up slow signs to try to get the vehicles to slow down. The situation has always been there, but now we have increased it.
Well, no, I can understand the volume. I'm just wondering, you know, the issue of pedestrians crossing there has been there.
That, in my estimation, is paramount. You cannot leave that location unmanned for 30 seconds. And that's how bad it was.
At least prior to all of the polls being there, when we only had 2 precincts voting there, the configuration of the lot was the stacked parking. So you didn't have this circular vehicular traffic going around, which increases the number of times that those cars are traveling through the parking lot, possibly impacting other cars that are backing up, persons that are walking. So a lot of the factors changed, you know, by reconfiguring that lot. You know, but certainly the volume, you know, increased the incidence of danger for the voters exiting. They're not thinking when they're leaving the polls to be looking for the cars, and the cars aren't realizing that there's a blind spot.
When we first drafted this plan, we were always concerned about pedestrians, and that's why we created that center lane for pedestrian traffic. In hindsight, although we still think it was a good idea to have those lanes for pedestrian traffic, we created a situation where all vehicles had to come by the entranceway. By allowing them to now double stack or triple stack, although it's going to be inconvenient for the voters, it should alleviate potential pedestrian issues, which, as I stated before, I mean, I witnessed it firsthand. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, how bad it was.
So worst case in this proposal that you're making is that somebody may have to wait for a voter to come out if they're boxed in.
Yes, and hopefully, I mean, people were pretty good about Barber's employees, staff, about parking in the rear lot. that created a whole nother set of issues with pedestrian crossing to the rear lot. But for the most part, I don't think that we really had any long-term parking issues on the side lot.
Sean?
One suggestion I would have, because of the voter exit, I understand the issue there with public safety, it's sort of tucked in like an alcove. Why not block that off? Don't use that as a voter exit. Have your voters come back out through the entrance.
Yeah, that's not the way the election law runs it. You do need to have persons entering in one door and exiting through another. And prior.
Well, why don't you do it the reverse way then?
Well,
have them come in.
There's not enough room. That is the way it used to be before the addition went on the church. That was actually the voting entrance. And the voters exited through the rear, which is now empties into, which is the foyer where you enter,
Right.
except that was stepping into the parking lot. So the voter exit area is very, very small. And it also doesn't run the length of the 4 precincts, so you would be channeling all of the voter traffic in through half of the booth and going alongside the rear to go and vote in their various precincts. It would be logistically a hardship, I think, on the voters. Oftentimes in the weather like that we had in January, they would be waiting outside in the parking area, the driving area, in the snow, the rain, what have you. It would cause a backup into the actual parking lane during heavy turnout.
So, how do you prevent, I can see that, that people come down here and they see cars parked in the lanes. So what they do is they just pull in far enough, and then to get out, they back up again, and we're back to the same issue. You're thinking that at least it would be minimized because a lot of people would.
Based on what we saw, excuse me, Barbara, but based on what we saw during that January election, we're trying to give something else a shot here because it didn't work. Like I said, having witnessed it firsthand in the reports from the officers of the near misses, pedestrian safety, we would not recommend any plan going forward without at least 2 officers there in the parking lot.
Joe?
Well, I think everyone knows my feelings on this one polling place, but I won't go there. Looking at what I see in front of me, I think that this is the option we should try. I did see Jeff's drawing, and I do understand, but I don't believe the entrance and exit, let's call it on the east driveway, would work. Because putting the pedestrians aside, which is of course our most important concern, but putting them aside, then you would have traffic coming around the building, coming down. If they don't get a spot, now they're gonna be conflicting with vehicles that are trying to come in also. And you're gonna have vehicles trying to get out and come in at the same, then they're gonna have to go back up around and then down around past that pedestrian. So if we were gonna try one, I would like to see us try this one here.
Well, it's not this one, though. This is not what you're
No,
proposing.
this is what we have currently. As you
Right,
can
that's
see,
right,
the
okay.
east lot is divided, and
Right,
the
but this
striping
one
that
here-
shows is opposite of what we actually have on the diagram.
Well, my understanding of what they're proposing is that these lines are actually all,
Right.
they're not having.
They're false,
Right.
they're for,
Right.
yeah,
And
demonstration purposes.
instead of having a center, it's just wide open.
Right. But what you're proposing is the vehicles are gonna come in and go down both sides, correct?
No.
No.
Or you're gonna have them going down one side?
One side.
Oh, okay. Oh, and just
Just
use
as
what's
the
actually
church
there.
configuration.
And they
Yeah.
exit
Okay.
on the other side.
But still, you'd have the one exit. That's what I agree with, yeah. Yeah, I would say try that.
I think that if you try to put an entrance at 62 on that east lot too, you could end up with some head-on collisions
But
potentially, because
that would not
voters
work.
are definitely going to continue to, exit both left and right there, and just, the confusion again, I think
They
could.
naturally form 2 lanes when they
Yes.
exit, because the people are going east and west, so.
So they already take up that
Yeah,
whole
by
apron
habit, yeah,
basically
you're
in
right
both
about that.
ways. If that was gonna be a plan, you'd have to have an officer there all day too, but I think that that's a danger, I really
Jeffrey?
do.
Yeah, with using one entrance, which would be the north entrance, the entrance would be the north side?
Or the west side.
Is that the west side? Okay, you're right, I'm sorry. on the west side. If I recall, the